Hey everybody, Eric Dorward here with the Spartan Rocketry Club, and we are going to be finishing up our build of the new Shepard rocket. And so far, we have basically constructed the whole thing. It's painted, it's finished. Um, Overall, I mean, it's reasonably a decent paint job, I think. The only problem is these strakes, because of the way they were shaped, they ended up with some kind of imperfections, that, like the grains sticking out because this is cut in a different direction. It's fine out here, but I wish I would have filled this in a bit with a variety of our finishing materials so it'd be nicer looking. But overall, it is reasonably good, and I don't see a lot of grain on the fins, which is nice, and that's where I spent most of my time trying to make this look nice. So the finished product's going to look like this, but there are a few things we need to do before we call it done. First off is, remember this bit down here. So I had trouble getting this on last time, and in fact I didn't succeed in the video to get this plastic part on over the top of the motor mount. What I ended up doing is I just got it on. I scraped the inside because I had gotten a little bit of CA glue on the inside of the rocket body here, and I ended up scraping some of that off, sanding it down, and I applied, or didn't really apply it, I just put this plastic part over the motor mount, and right now nothing is holding it on there. There's no glue, there's no nothing. And I'm okay with that. And the reason why is because, first of all, it's on there pretty nicely right now. But the main reason is I recalled that I have to put this motor mount on the end, like so. And when I do that, I'm pretty confident that as soon as that happens, this part could only go off that direction, and that could only happen if there wasn't anything in the back blocking it. So I'm going to put some CA glue on this and just put it over the bottom like this, and that'll hold it in place. I don't actually need to have the plastic bit glued inside the rocket body. It's not adding anything structural, and having the end retainer on should do the trick. But I'm not going to worry about that right now. The other minor thing that we need to do is attach the shock cord and motor mount, but again, that's somewhat minor, and you've seen that before. The big to do here is going to be getting the decals right. Now, the decals, I had cut from a sheet, which is a little bit different from any that we've had to do so far. These are waterslide decals, and they're more sophisticated than any that we've done so far in terms of water slides. I had to cut these out, and I haven't completely done it. So here's one little bit. I cut most of these out. I didn't cut them the whole way because I didn't want to lose the little bits. So I typically just cut these with scissors, and I try to get them generally pretty close to the shape that they are supposed to look like. So this is an American flag. I'm going to cut it down pretty small, get it pretty close to the flag itself. Now there's what appears to be blue paper. I mean, the paper is blue, but the decal is not. The decal is transparent, and there's just blue paper behind it. So it would be nice to get the decals trimmed as closely as you can to the actual colors on the decals, but it is not super necessary. It's not like they're going to be big splotches of white or blue or whatever where you don't want them. So we can live with that. Now, this is a big feather that's supposed to be on the rocket, and this was not in the right order, so I put it in the right order, laid out for me, so I wasn't going to screw this up and put it on the wrong place, which would be really embarrassing having done all the work at this point. Most of the time, the decals are generally you could put them, there are lots of ways you could do it, and it wouldn't be messy. However, this one, it does have to go in the right order and in the right place. So looking at the instructions and the nice picture on the box, we need to get this piece right here, this decal, on where the, you can't see that, there we go, where the launch lug protrudes. So we need to be careful about that. That happens to be this one right here. So I'm going to toss that in my warm water in a custard cup first and get that ready to go. The nose cone, remember we finished this a while ago. This, I mean, it has a right way as well. Like this dark part here is going to line up with the edge of this, but we can spin this around after the fact, so we're not going to worry about that too much. remember, when we are doing these waterslide decals, they're called waterslide because you get them wet and then they slide off, hence waterslide. Warm water, about 30 seconds is usually good enough. My water is not as warm as it once was. While that is warming up, I also want to make sure that I have a piece of paper towel, which I do, ready to blot. All right, so let's do this. This is, you can see that I can move it off right now. So this needs to fit right in here. And looking at the directions, both and the picture, I do want it. Well, I mean, it doesn't look like it goes the whole way up. It looks like, on this instruction here or on the picture, it looks like it comes a little bit short, but I don't think I'm going to worry about that. I'm just going to put it up as close as I can get to the edge because the edge is a nice guide to getting the decal straight. So again, the easiest way that I found to do these is get them generally where you want. Put your thumb down on one end of it and then carefully, gently, because you could definitely rip these things, just kind of pull it off. If you do a gentle, decent job, there won't be a whole lot of bubbles. Now, I have a few. The bigger the decal, the more likely it is that you'll not quite get it on straight and will need to smooth it out. This is where the paper towel comes in. So I'm just going to brush, essentially, and try to get any air bubbles that are in there pushed out. You'll notice I'm also holding it down with this finger so that it doesn't move away when I do that. All right, that looks pretty good. I am going to continue on. I'm not going to do all of these on camera, of course, because, this is not terribly exciting bit of operational procedure here, but it is important and it's worth seeing since we haven't really done a big, nice waterslide decal like this before. This next bit, according to the box and the instructions, here we are again. This one goes here. It is lined up with the previous one at whatever we decreed to be the top. So again, at the edge of this section of the rocket. I do want to make sure that that gets wet and warm enough so that it comes off easily. And seriously though, the decals are exceedingly thin. They're not like, it's like thinner than saran wrap. So it's pretty easy to damage them if you are being rough with them. And if you pull on them, they will stretch, and that would be bad too because you could tear them, but also like the decal printed on it will stretch and won't look so good. So you do want to be gentle with these. They can take a decent amount of abuse, but don't push it, is my suggestion. I personally prefer working with waterslide decals because I think they look better than stickers for the most part. And the other nice benefit is that once you get them on here, they're not going to peel off like stickers have a penchant for doing. Now, one problem here, though, you can see this already, is that they do tend to fold over on themselves if you are not careful. And if you get them folded on top of themselves, it is very annoying to try to undo that. So the goal is to not have them wrap up on themselves. And this is really tight fit. I mean, it's supposed to be, so that's good. But it is a tight fit, and I am trying to be as careful as possible, and I am pretty pleased with that. Notice, though, my ring finger here is touching the previous decal, so I didn't really do that consciously, but it seemed kind of necessary to hold everything in place. So I will need to go back and make sure that I didn't muss up or do anything negative that would affect the placement of that first decal that I have. And looking at it, yeah, it's pretty good. All right. There are two more faces of this. I suppose we might as well at least start on the next one. I'm going to put the big ones on, and then the little ones are actually pretty easy to do. I've never really had a problem dealing with the little ones. Sometimes the really, really, really little ones, like these flags, are pretty little. But even they're not that bad. They're small enough that you can move them around with your finger like so. And the biggest danger there is losing them, which is a distinct possibility because they're that small. All right, so while this is getting wet, let's check the instructions again to make sure that I'm going to put this one on the right place. It looks like, here are the instructions. This is a nice little blow up. It shows all four faces of the rocket. the top of the leaf, or the feather rather, it's not a leaf, is going to be not all the way up at the top. So I'm going to have to carefully align that to where it ought to be relative to this panel. So it's not going to be all the way at the top. I kind of want the bottom part here to match up with the bottom part there. Now, the nice thing about water slide decals is once you get them on, you can move them without a whole lot of consequence. Now, you obviously don't want to damage them in the process, but once you got them off the backing and onto the rocket, the water, if they're wet enough, which they really should be, the water acts as like a lubricant, so you can slide them around until you decide you want to pat them dry with the paper towel and set them in place. Like there. This is not where I want this to be. I want this to be much farther down, and I am not having much trouble just sliding it to where it ought to be. Things got a little bunched there, but I can smooth that out with either my wet finger in this case, or eventually with the paper towel. The paper towel is going to get its turn pretty soon, but I do want to there's a little bit of bunchiness there that I would like to get rid of. And adjusting it to get it straight seems to have done most of the trick to take care of that problem. All right, that looks pretty good. I'm actually going to toss the last bit into the water here to facilitate things a little bit while I blot this section and smooth out whatever little deformities in the decal or my decal applying process I may have created. Now, it looks like I did fold it over on itself a little bit here. And you can tell that because it is thicker, which is not really a good thing. It seems to have kind of gotten double thick right in that spot. Now, I don't know that I'm really going to try super hard to deal with this, but if you manage to fold over like a printed part of it and it looked stupid, you can carefully put a hobby knife underneath and kind of use that to coax the parts separate. Now, like I said, there wasn't anything colored underneath it. I think, if anything, it was just a little bit of the extra clear decal. And frankly, I don't even see it now that I've kind of reset it there. So I'm not going to mess with it. It looks pretty good, although I do need to smooth a couple spots out here. Just be careful, because of course the hobby knife can cut through decals without a whole lot of trouble. So if you're going to attempt to realign things, don't actually cut. That would be bad. That would be destructive to the purpose. All right, so last little bit, I want to make sure that I put this in the right place. It should look like this. And I will make sure that things are essentially where I want them. That looks like basically where it ought to be. And removing from the backing. This one's actually kind of tricky. You can see it's not really folding up on itself, although that I'm not really pleased with that because the fin is in the way and it's giving me a little bit of grief. There we go. All right, overall that looks like it is essentially where it should be. So I am going to blot in both directions. There's a little bit of bunching right there. Don't really love that. Let's try to brush it the other direction. There we go. And overall, that looks pretty good. This would also be the point where if you have any like beads of water for whatever reason. Oh, and look here. This is where I bumped up against the decal while I was applying it other places, so I need to re-smooth this portion out. And I'm actually going to get it a little bit wet. And then brush it down there. If that happens, if you get a little clumpiness for whatever reason, you can usually just a little bit of water will release things a bit, and then you'll be able to smooth out any issues. All right, so that looks pretty good. The rest of the decals I'm not going to bother showing you doing, plus my water has gotten pretty tepid, so I need to refill that. I will come back momentarily and we'll apply the shock cord. So once I finish the decal work, and I'm going to put the engine mount on too, or the retainer on, and I will be back shortly. See you then. All right, so the decal work is done. Some of the little American flags, that was a little tricky because they're so small, but if they're so small, they're pretty easy to move around, so that was good. Getting the Blue Origin script to be basically in a straight line is difficult, and if you want to do a really good job, you should probably not eyeball it like I did. Um, there are, of course, ways to deal with that, but I'm pretty happy with my job, and I didn't really want to go to any of the trouble doing the really hard stuff. So now the last little bits. Oh, and I put the retainer on. And by the way, I put a little bit of CA glue up against the edge, and then just put the cap on and pushed down so that it was firmly attached, and I didn't have to get my fingers near the glue. So this is in good shape. Last little bits of work we need to do involve doing the recovery system. So this is not new technique here. We're taking our elastic shock cord here and putting it in the template that I cut out of the directions, folding it over. This you've probably seen me do before at this point. This is actually a pretty big mount, so maybe 4 stripes of glue instead of my usual 3. Fold it over again. That looks pretty good. Flattening things out. Getting a decent amount of glue on my hands because, it's kind of par for the course. And then last but not least, let's actually attach this thing. It's probably more glue than I really wanted, which would explain why there's glue on my fingers. By the way, I've still got my water here. I'm going to use that to rinse my fingers off because the last thing I want to do is get nasty old glue on my rocket now that it is painted and the decals are on it. So yeah, that would be bad. So in this goes. This can actually go pretty far in because I can reach my finger fairly well into this rocket. So I'm going to just push it down carefully here like usual. Use my middle finger. Sorry, everybody, but that one reaches farther. And that looks pretty good. All right, so that is set, ready to go. And last but not least, I will attach our fishing barrel to the parachute. Parachute, oh, this is a unique one. This is unique to our good friends at Blue Origin, I guess. Some of these have test patterns on them for tracking purposes, but some of them actually, like one Mars lander recently, the code was essentially like a barcode that had messages written on it. I don't know what the case is for this one. I suppose I could find out, but I have not yet. So anyway, I've gathered up all the cords, and I am going to then thread it through the eye of my barrel, and then take the barrel and push it up through and pull tight, and I am done. Nose cone. My barrel will go through the nose cone, and I will reclasp. That's a tough one. There we go, got it. And then my shock cord. 3 basic knots will probably do the trick here as well. I have to say I'm quite glad I did not need to paint and put decals onto the nose cone because that job, painting it white wouldn't have been hard, but putting a decal on a curved surface, on a particularly curved surface, like the rocket fuselage is slightly curved. No, it's not slightly, it's quite curved, but it's not anywhere near as curved as this, because this is curved in 3 dimensions rather than just the cylindrical body tube. That one's not so bad, but that one would have been thoroughly unpleasant to apply. And there we go. That'll do. I'm not going to pack this right now because there's still wet glue inside the body tube, but that's it. I am looking forward to flying this thing. Should be fun. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in our next video series.